My name is Corien and I'm the owner and founder of Mamma Mia, a child development app for babies and toddlers. And today we're going to talk about a topic that really is one that is a main discussion in most homes, and that is tantrums. Today I'm really going to just share a personal testimony from my own life about my own children having two different types of tantrums. And I really believe from an occupational therapy point of view that this will empower parents to understand what their toddlers are going through while experiencing tantrums. And we all know if we just understand, then we can have so much more compassion for what our toddlers are going through, and also have compassion for ourselves, because it's not easy to witness and go through this roller coaster of watching our toddlers tantrum. So let's dive in a little bit into what tantrums is and what is the difference between frustration tantrums and sensory meltdown tantrums, because those are the most two common ones that we experience every day. The first type I want to talk about is frustration tantrums. Now that happens when a toddler is frustrated with the situation that he's faced with, or he's angry and he can't get what he wants. That is typically something like, I want to have a cookie right before dinner time and I can't have one now. Or we're visiting a grandma and now it's time to go home and I don't want to leave now. Or I'm building this tower and it keeps falling over and I'm frustrated that I can't get this right. Most of the time, frustration tantrums can be avoided if our toddlers can communicate with us. Communication is one of the key elements in trying to manage and handle frustration tantrums. Unfortunately, with my own testimony of my own son, he started with tantrums at the very young age of 12 months. And I was so worried. Why is this 12-month-old little baby having intense temper tantrums? My toddler wanted to communicate certain things and I didn't understand him. He did not have the vocabulary to communicate his needs, and he couldn't understand that I wasn't able to get what he wants. Round about at 14 to 16 months, his communication ability developed in such a way that he was able to tell me exactly what he wanted. End of tantrums. So I want to encourage you today, if you have a very young child, a baby that is really struggling with tantrums, focus all of your attention on developing their communication skills. Talk to them while you see this tantrum building up, because you can see, oh my goodness, in a few minutes we're going to have a full-blown tantrum. You can see the frustration build up. Talk to your toddler about what they are feeling. Give them options. Give them emotional language. Are you feeling angry? Are you feeling sad? Are you feeling frustrated? Mommy is here. How can I help you? Let them show you what they need. Help them to articulate their needs. I know it's difficult in the beginning because they still have to develop their language skills. But the quicker they learn how to communicate, even if it's just with a 1-word or 2-word sentence, the quicker you can understand them and fulfill that need. End of tantrums. So I want to really give this as an encouragement to parents. I know it's a difficult situation if you have to manage tantrums, and if this is part of your everyday routine, try to focus on developing good communication skills. Give your toddler vocabulary. The second type of tantrum that we get is a sensory meltdown. Now, let me first explain the difference between the two, because for the parent that observes a tantrum, it can look exactly the same, but the root, where it comes from, is completely different. So a frustration tantrum, it originates in a frustration of the child, of not getting what he wants, or an inability to try and communicate to the parent what they want. So they're frustrated, they're angry, frustration tantrum. Those tantrums usually last anything between 2 and 15 minutes. And after a while, you can sit with your child, you can discuss what happened, not in the moment, but afterwards. You can have a conversation about, this is why we couldn't give you what you wanted, we had to go home, it's time for us to leave, or you can have a discussion. With regards to sensory meltdowns, the amount of time it takes for your child to calm down is much longer, and it can even take up to 2 hours for your child to calm down, because the root of that meltdown, of that tantrum, is actually from sensory overload. So your child was exposed to an environment where they got overstimulated and they were not able to regulate themselves. And then all that was left was to have a tantrum. Their system just went overloaded and they cried it out. And in that case, you need to actually allow your child, your toddler or your baby, to just cry it out. Let me give you a testimony from my own life. When my little girl started preschool, that intense sensory input that she got during the morning school hours was just too much for her in the beginning. And when she came home, she was perfectly fine. When I picked her up from school, she was a happy little girl. But in the car, on our way home, I could see that suddenly the wheels were coming off. And the second that we got home, she started crying. And sometimes it was the most interesting triggers. I didn't open the door the way she would have liked me to open the door, or I clicked the buckle in wrong of the car seat. And so it would be a silly trigger, and it would just trigger this emotional meltdown, and she would cry and not stop. And no matter what I did, I tried to soothe her, I tried everything, I couldn't calm her down. That is a sensory meltdown, and very different from frustration tantrums. So the only remedy that I can give you for helping you through the situation as a parent when you know your child is experiencing a sensory overload and having a sensory meltdown is to be, number one, be aware of what is causing the sensory meltdowns. Is it a shopping mall with too much noise and too many people? Is it the school that they are attending? Shouldn't you take it, gradually increase the hours that they spend at school, like I did with my little girl? So be aware of their sensory triggers and what is their sensory trigger. Sometimes it's visually, sometimes it's auditory. Sometimes it's just too much touch, too many people holding your toddler. It can be so many things, but you know your toddler best, so be aware of their sensory triggers. And then to calm them down is just to take them to their safe space where it's quiet and comfortable. So with Mia, I held her in my arms and I walked with her through the garden where there's no noise, it was just us, and I just held her and patted her on the back, and I just continually said, Mom is here, it's okay, you can cry it out, it's fine, I'm here. And I just allowed her to cry it out, and sometimes it did take up to 2 hours for her to calm down. But that is a sensory meltdown. And this is not something that your toddler can regulate by themselves. Just as we put little training wheels on our kids' bikes when they start to learn how to ride a bike, the same way we need to help our children to regulate their emotions. And we do that by manipulating or adapting the environment where they are. When you manipulate or adapt the environment, think about what sets off a tantrum. You know your toddler, or what is the triggers for sensory overload, and be aware of the signs before the tantrum or the meltdown. That way, you can most of the time prevent the meltdown or the tantrum by putting steps in place before they actually get there, because you as a parent can regulate your emotions much better than they can. So help them, teach them how to regulate. A fun tip that I can give you, if you see your toddler is building up to a frustration tantrum, take them outside and play a game with them, for example, throwing a ball. Something where they can get rid of their frustration energy, but in a healthy way. fold up little newspaper balls and throw newspaper balls at a target, or have a little newspaper block ready and stomp your feet on it and say, let's just get rid of all of our frustration emotions, and stomp your feet on this little newspaper. But this needs to happen before you see the tantrum explode. It's in that little space just before. So try these helpful tips to see if you can help your toddler to regulate their emotions, be aware of when a frustration tantrum or meltdown is coming up, and to prevent it by just adapting their environment a little bit. I know this is a trial and error experiment because there's no recipe for us as parents to know exactly how our children will react in these situations. They are all unique and all different, and they are going to need different approaches from us. Even my one child versus my other child had a completely different approach for handling their different situations. So also be patient with yourself as a parent, that you and your toddler are both figuring out this dance of how am I going to regulate my emotions. Please feel free to reach out. Send us a message on Instagram or Facebook if you want to know more about temper tantrums versus sensory meltdown tantrums. We are doing a whole month of just encouraging parents and equipping them and empowering them with tools to manage tantrums. We're looking forward to walking this journey with you. Bye-bye from Mama Mia.